Welcome back to Leave Average for Joe, the podcast where we dive deep with extraordinary people who are breaking molds, challenging the status quo, and offering Briggs, real world wisdom. For those of you that don't know, I have terrible issues with my R's and W's, I guess. And when those words with those letters starting are back to back, it is a shot to the ego, as you just experienced. Let me try that again. Offering real world wisdom for anyone ready to leave average behind. This week, I sit down with a guest who truly embodies what it means to push boundaries on the track in business and in life. From Colorado, please welcome Neely Gracey, Olympic trials qualifying runner, soon to be mom of 3 boys, business owner, running coach, and co-author of Breakthrough Women's Running. Neely's story is nothing short of remarkable. She's a 4-time U.S. Olympic trials qualifier, pardon me, the top American finisher at the 2016 Boston Marathon, and a world record holder for the fastest stroller mile, clocking an incredible 5 minutes 24 while pushing her son around the track in Denver. I mean, just when we think we've seen it all, heard it all, done it all. As the founder of Get Running Coaching, Neely has helped over 1,000 athletes chase their own breakthroughs. Her journey weaves together elite level competition, entrepreneurship, and motherhood, all while inspiring a new generation of runners to dream bigger and run bolder. In this episode, Neely shares the lessons learned from her record breaking pursuits, how she balances training with family and business, and why she believes anyone, no matter where, they can start running through their own barriers. Whether you're a runner, parent, or just someone looking to leave average in the dust, Neely's insights and personal stories will light a frickin' fire under your goals. So lace up, get inspired, and join us as we welcome Neely Gracey to Leave Average for Joe. How are you doing on this Thursday morning?
Not too bad. I just finished up a run and yeah, can't
Yeah?
complain. Um, and then I was like, all right, perfect. I have just enough time to like eat breakfast, take a shower, and get ready to go.
Oh
So
my
you're
gosh.
the first task on my work day.
Isn't that funny? We always just try to cram so much in, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I can't even come up for air sometimes to breathe.
Yes,
But it's all for good things, hopefully things that you're passionate about. And that's
exactly.
like the huge reason why I wanted to bring you on was because I can tell that the passion you have for running um is infectious, and it's grown into a community that I'm so excited to learn more about, and hear more about your story. So for listeners to understand who the heck I brought on today, if you could just introduce yourself as the human that you are and what you would encapsulate yourself to be focused on, at least in this chapter in your life.
Totally. Well, hello everyone. My name is Neely Gracey, and I am an elite runner. I've qualified for the Olympic trials 4 times, and I've been running competitively since I was 13. I'm also a running coach. I started my own business in 2013. So I've had that for the last 12 years, and I've coached over 1,000 athletes towards their personal running goals. And then I'm a mom of 2, soon to be 3 boys. And so those are the big things in my life, my main priorities, and what gets me out of bed every day, and what I try to check off each day. Like, definitely is kind of focused on those 3 areas of my life.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, that was just like such a well-rounded, rehearsed sort of bullet point form of what you do, what you specialize in. I'm curious to know if you started to polish that off because of more professional work that you do now, sort of being an independent representative of yourself, and having people ask you more and more about what you do, how you got to these places, all of that stuff. With that, I think that you launched a book or are affiliated with a book. Is that right?
Yeah, so there's obviously lots of little tangents that I go off. So in 2022, I co-authored a book called Breakthrough Women's Running, and it is essentially the roadmap of all the things I wish I knew when I got into running as a female athlete. And it includes things like nutrition and goal setting, breathing techniques, hormones and training, and then race plans. Because, being the coach, I had to throw some race plans in there.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, that was like a huge passion project for me that I kind of put 2 years of energy into. Um, and then, yes, I have some other little things. I have two sponsors that have supported me kind of on this mothering phase of my career. Jam Bar, which is an organic energy bar company, that is a female run business that was created by the original founder of Power Bar. So if people remember those, Jam Bar is something that I can really get behind because I have kids and we are on the go a lot, and I need to have like whole, organic, nutritious, but quick food that I
Yeah.
can feed them. So that's been really fun for me. And then I also work with a stroller company called Guava Family. And in 2023, I set the stroller mile world record, pushing one of my kiddos in the Rome stroller. So, yeah, I feel like I have so many little things that I could like elaborate on when it comes to like my, I don't know, introduction of myself. But I try to keep it like those three main priorities because all these other things kind of support those goals,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can like so wholeheartedly understand where you're coming from because as somebody that like yourself pursues something that is on your own, whether it build a company, whether it be an athlete, whether it be an artist, all of these different facets, you naturally start to sort of take on projects, go through phases, start and finish chapters. It's not a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, where you get one title, and you feel like you can like package that nice and cutely in a box and say what you do.
Totally.
But and I think that that's not for everyone, but it's for lots. And people that listen to this podcast are interested, even if they don't have sort of that character or that personality or that I guess, taste for entrepreneurship, sports, and all that stuff. They are at least curious in it and want to know how people like yourself operate, and the unique things that you do day to day to balance it all. I love, love, love the fact that you have also sort of specialized or focused more on women runners as well, because I think the more that you can have a focus and target on what you're sort of researching, studying, putting energy in towards, the more information and quality information we can get. So we need everyone to be focusing on their sort of individual things so that we can get good quality content in this world. And again, a reason why I wanted to bring you on, because you do sort of specialize in these unique components. Um, I would love to just backtrack a little bit because I want to know where you sort of grew up and when running came into your life. If it was something that was a part of you from day one, was it a part of your family, or was this something that you randomly took on mid 20s? You know what I mean? Because you can get both. You can get both. I feel like there's like these avid runners that are like, I just started a month ago. And then there's also them that are like, I was in track and field since I was 6.
Right, 100%. Yeah, my story is kind of unique, I think, too. So I'm excited to share it. Um, so I was actually born into a running family. Um, my dad was a professional marathoner, and he was actually running the Boston Marathon while I was born. So he missed my birth. My mom was not happy about that. But it makes for a cool story. I was born on Marathon Monday. And then my first marathon I personally ever did was Boston. So that was like such a full circle moment. So yeah, I grew up in this running family. My dad went to the Olympics when I was 2. He got a bronze medal at the World Championships when I was a baby. And so I think my story is a little different in that that's not the case for many people. But it really was until 8th grade for me that I got personally involved in running. I had always, hung out at the track, um, cheered my dad on. My mom like pushed us in the stroller when we were little, and then I have twin sisters. When they were born, I got kicked out of the stroller and like quickly learned how to ride a bike so I could keep up. Um, and then, you know, I spent summers training in Colorado because my dad would do altitude stints. So when I was a kid, like every summer, we went to Colorado. And that was just like a normal part of my life. And now, all these years later, my husband and I made our home in Colorado. So
Oh,
it's kind of cool, like that influence, all those years later, like from the time I was, born till I was 7, when my dad retired from professional running. Um, we would spend a lot of time in Boulder. And then, when I was like 25, we moved to Boulder. Um, so yeah, it's been kind of unique, but yeah, I started when I was 13, and I watched the high school national championship for cross country on TV. And I was like, I want to go. I want to do that. And my dad was like, well, like these are the best runners in the country. It kind of takes some work. And I was like, okay, tell me what to do. And so in 1 year, I went from running a 29-minute 5K to running a 17-minute 5K. And I think once I saw like my work pay off, as well as, the talent that I inherently had, um, I was like hooked on running, right? And then of course, like the double-edged sword of that is that then you make like such tiny incremental progress after that.
totally.
And it took me like years and years and years to cut like 10 seconds off. But that initial jump in progress, and in fitness, and like, as I work towards those goals, really like hooked me in the
Yeah.
sport.
Oh my gosh. Did you have siblings that were also as avid runners as you, or did you really take sort of that like lead in the family to pursue running?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest, and I did naturally kind of uh, have to pave the way for the rest of my
Yeah.
siblings there. Um, but we all run. My sisters don't run as competitively, but they still run, multiple days a week for fitness and fun. My brother is actually in college at Pepperdine, and
Oh,
he runs on the team there. So, we've all really embraced running at some level in our day-to-day lives, which
do
is
you
special.
do you feel like you still so this is tricky because I think when it comes to running, there's so many reasons why people start to do it, why they love it, why they might not like it, all of this stuff. For you, because it happened at such a young age, it was introduced into your life. Do you ever feel like it just took a professional turn so soon, or so like the competitive sort of professional turn so early on in your life that you never had the chance to like really enjoy what it would be like without that attachment?
Yeah. So I would say my story is a little bit reversed, right? Like usually it starts off as like this fun hobby and then maybe you develop more
Yeah.
seriously. Mine started off with like, I'm going to qualify for the national championship and I'm
Yeah.
all in. And then once I did that, it was like, okay, now what's the next goal? I'm going to win the national championship. Okay,
Right.
what's the next goal? And so I pretty much had 14 years of like all in, very competitive. And it was all self-driven. Like
I was
this
just gonna
was,
ask that.
yeah, like, my parents were runners, yes. But this was all like very intrinsic for me. Was I set these goals and I expected nothing less of myself. Um, and so, I was four-time state champion in high school. I became national champion in high school. I was an eight-time NCAA champion in college. I graduated and immediately turned pro, um, and started my professional career
Yeah.
right after college. And then in 2017, so 5 years into my pro career, I kind of just broke. And I was like, I have had, a string of injuries. I'm kind of burned out. I need a little bit of a break. And so in conjunction with an injury at that point, I kind of took a month off and ended up getting pregnant with our first
Mm.
child. Um, and at that point, was still sponsored
Wow.
by Adidas at the time, but I was like, I'm going to take this year and like, you know, focus on being a mom. And then I'm going to work back into training at a high level. Um, and that was the first time that I just ran for fun. I had no goals, I had no expectations. I had, you know, a challenging pregnancy, and I ended up having to take 6 months off from running. And so I had like a little bit of an identity crisis, right? Like, I'm Neely the runner. Oh wait, I don't
Yeah.
run anymore. What do I do? Who am I? Um, and so that was like a really interesting phase of life that provided a lot of growth for me. Um, and during that time, I kind of realized, wow, like if I had the chance to go to the Olympics, but then never run again, or run every day but never race, I would choose run every day. Because to me, I love the daily routine of running. I like how my body feels when I wake up, I go do my run, and then I start everything else. And it was less about performance, it's less about the goals, and it's so much more about the daily lifestyle. Um, and so that was like very revolutionary for me, like during that time of my life where I realized, oh, like I can run and not have really big career goals. Um, and so, yeah, I have had that time where I've loved running and it's just been for fun. But it took 14 years for me to get there.
That is an incredible story, and thank you for sharing that because there's so many people that start something early in their life, become attached to it, become attached to that identity, that title. Other people tell them that's what they're known for. You know what I mean? Um, and then all of a sudden, switch goes off or something happens, and they're now trying to find a new identity or a new something. They struggle with that shift. They struggle with that moment in their life. And I think it does happen. And I think one of the things that I like to focus on in this podcast is if there is anyone that's like sort of in that graduation phase in their life or transition phase. So whether you're shifting from one job to another or thinking about like going back to school or whatever it is, that is so scary. It's like absolutely nauseous, pit in your stomach, usually. And sometimes not even like just saying it out into the world and keeping it in, and you come up with the worst case scenarios. That's the natural thing that we do, is just like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Do you have sort of any, I guess, reflecting on that moment in your life when you were able to kind of come up for air and realize, I run for myself, I run for my health, I run for my happiness. I run because it's a lifestyle, not because it's an award at the end of the finish line or anything like that. Do you
Mhm.
have anything to say for anyone that might be thinking about like these crazy endeavors, or not even crazy, just like a switch, a change up in their life?
Totally. I think it's interesting because there's kind of two things we're talking about right now. Um, Change, but one is forced change and one is a decision to
Mm,
change. And so, when there's forced change, you have to figure it out. You have no other option, right? Like it's kind
yeah,
of you're thrown into it. You got to make the most of it and figure out what you got to do.
yeah,
Um, but the decision to change is, I think, almost even harder and scarier, right? Because you're the one that's making that choice with the, well, I could just stay status quo, do what I'm doing, do what's comfortable. And so, we see that a lot with like a change in career, or, the decision to leave your job and stay home with your kids, or whatever it could be. But then there's the force change. Like my body couldn't run when I was
yeah,
pregnant, and so I had to be like, who am I if I'm not a runner? Um, and both of them are very important, and we're going to encounter both in life. So I would say, there's my example of forced change.
yeah,
Like I had to change. I had to like come up with something different. I'm sure that other people, are thinking you guys all have something in your head of like, oh yeah, well I was forced because, you know, my job was terminated, or I was forced because we had to move to keep
yeah,
my job and I didn't want to move, but that was our option. Or whatever. But I think the decision to change for me, um, kind of came later. So, like I mentioned, I was training professionally. I had every intention of continuing that focus after having kids. Um, I was kind of part of this shift in women's athletics where it used to be, you have a baby, your body is your job. That means your job's kind of over. And, companies would just suspend your contract or drop you entirely. We saw, Allison Felix, multi time, Olympic medalist, just get dropped as soon as she got pregnant. Nike was like, we don't need to support you anymore. And then, you know, I felt kind of some pressure from that like I need to prove that women shouldn't be dropped from
right,
athletics. Um, and so I think I did try to get back too quickly, after, you know, I didn't understand or respect the recovery process. That doesn't just take a couple months, following, a pregnancy and delivery. Um, it takes years for your body to fully heal, on the cellular level from the inside out, while you're managing, raising, feeding, growing, nurturing this little person that you're entirely responsible for, and also getting significantly less sleep than you did before. There's so
yeah,
much going on, and I didn't respect that whole process. So I ended up with a femoral neck stress fracture, um, right before my son turned one. And at that point, it was like my brain was really ready to run again, but my body wasn't quite there. So it was this very like conflicting feeling. Um, so then after that, I kind of reevaluated.
yeah,
And this is where I kind of started to make that decision that was, more my choice of making a change versus a forced choice. And so I was like, I started to realize, hey, I cannot train the same way I trained before because my life looks very different than it did.
yeah,
So, before I had a baby, all I did was run, go to the gym, go to PT, get 2 massages a week. head to the rec center to get in the pool for recovery. My whole career was just surrounded around my runs and then supporting my recovery from those runs. That's not the case. Once I had a kid, it was like, all right, I have a 2 hour window to fit in everything I need to do. And then the rest of the day is focused on being a mom and trying to get my job done as well. And all these different things. And I just kind of wore myself down trying to do it all at the same level. So at that point, I was like, all right, I got to make a change and it's going to look different. But different doesn't mean bad. Different can still be really positive, right? So I had to run less miles. I had to stop doing double workouts. I used to run in the morning and in the afternoon because I could just watch TV in between.
Yeah.
That's not the case anymore. So I was able to kind of figure out like this alternative ability to run, train, pursue goals, but not fully deplete my body. Um, and also not have a ton of guilt because I didn't want to be away from my kid. I didn't want to put my kid into full-time care so that I could take a nap during the day. Um,
Hmm.
I wanted to be a present parent with him, as well as pursue these goals. So it really wasn't until I had my second son that I kind of got that down and figured it out. And I ended up running an all-time personal best after having my second child, qualifying for my fourth Olympic trials. And at that point, I realized, wow, I ran less. I was still breastfeeding at the time. Um, I felt really good about how I had navigated the priorities that were in my life. And as a result, I was able to be really successful.
Did you go to the Olympics after that fourth Olympic qualifier?
No, so I've never made the actual Olympic team. I have run for Team USA 5 times throughout my career in different world championships. And uh, the Olympic trials have been, I don't know if there's been a little bit of a curse on me or what's been going on, but I really successfully qualified for them. But the Olympic trials itself on the day has never been like that fairy tale,
Okay,
which is
so
fine.
I see. So to get my head around this, then for runners,
Mhm.
so you qualify. Everyone of the qualifiers, is that throughout is there like 7 marathons that could be Olympic qualifier events within the states, kind of thing, and there's only like a handful of marathons that actually can qualify you?
Yeah, so it has to be a certified course.
Yeah.
There are certain ones that are qualifiers, and there are certain ones that are not. So you do have to know which ones to go, and then there's a window that they give you. This is the window in which you can qualify, and it's usually like a year and a half, something like that. So then you plan, okay, which race am I going to go? Which one am I going to do? And then you have to meet the standard that they set. So in um, 2020, the standard was 2:45 for the marathon. In 2024, the standard was 2:37. So they made it significantly faster. Um, and so it'll be curious to see what it is for 2028 if they continue to just notch it down, which I suspect they probably will.
Is that
So you
because
have to
training's getting better?
I think training's getting better. There's been some new technologies with shoes that has kind of transformed
Like
the
the
distance
carbon
running
plate
world.
and
The
stuff?
carbon fiber, yep, exactly. So you get more return out of each step, and it decreases kind of the amount of jolt and strain from the impact. So the ability to recover quicker has been allowing people to run more marathons, train at a higher level, more successfully get in their long runs without fully depleting and destroying themselves. Um, I think that kind of, there's been a shift in the mindset that, before it used to be like, be as skinny and thin as you possibly can. And now there's like strong and powerful
Muscle.
is the way to go. And so people are having more consistency because we're not seeing as many injuries. There's more information out about women. It's not normal to lose your period from training. Where when I was a young athlete, it was like, well, that's pretty standard. That happens, all the time. But then you risk bone density issues, which then can destroy your career. So
Can we
I think
pause
that
on
there's
that for a
been,
second? I want
yeah,
to dig a little bit,
totally.
because with sports in general, women can lose their period, and if you're, under feeding yourself and over exercising, that is something that can happen. Um, I know that you mentioned that in partnership with writing that book, you did dig into a little bit of the nutritional side of things. So I would love for you to explore sort of what it looks like as a runner, and it's specifically a female runner, if you're starting to run these longer distances, how do you tweak things nutrition wise?
Yeah. So I would say, man, so I'll start off by saying I'm not a nutritionist. In our book, we called upon professionals in their different fields to support what we were saying in each of the chapters, so that we were providing accurate and healthy information for everybody. So I have worked with multiple nutritionists over the years, multiple dietitians. Um, and, the biggest thing is timing fueling. Um, and I think that is something that without working with someone can really be missed. We kind of know, okay, you need to eat 3 meals a day. If you're exercising, you should have some snacks. Protein's really important. Eat your veggies.
Yeah,
Carbs are really key for endurance
fuel.
athletes. Um, and women, really respond and need more carbs than men.
Mm,
Um, However, I think when we are trying to push our bodies, when we are, exploring our potential athletically, there's, a lot of intricacies and details that I've learned from working with these specialists over the years. And one of the biggest things is you proactively start your recovery before and during your run.
mm,
So you run, I run in the morning, but I wake up and give myself enough time to have coffee, to have breakfast, to get in a bottle of electrolytes before I go do my run. Because then I'm starting out of a depleted state. I've already fueled, hydrated, given my body nutrients to support the run that I'm about to do. Then, while I'm out running, if I run for over 90 minutes, so, in marathon training, I would do long runs and longer workouts that would end up being 90 minutes, 2 hours, 2.5 hours of continuous exercise. I would wear a fuel vest and I would have, my water, my electrolytes, some gels, and taking that in throughout the run not only helps you feel better while you're running, it keeps your energy levels consistent. You're not depleting your body of nutrients. You're not emptying out those glycogen stores. So on the other side of the run, your body can recover.
right,
It's not in the hole.
right.
So, you know, you're going to decrease the risk of injury. You're going to decrease the risk of getting sick. Um, and you're going to allow yourself to recover and reset so that in 2 or 3 days, you can go do another hard, sustained effort because you didn't, you know, fully
You didn't deplete your
bonk
body. You
or
didn't go into a
yeah,
deficit. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. So I think that that's like one of the biggest things that people kind of forget is, you know, yeah, it's all fine and dandy if you like, after your run, take your protein shake in. Like that's fantastic. That's great. But like there's so many steps before that point that you
yeah.
can do.
Did you ever get into, well, obviously you did because you worked with so many dietitians and nutritionists. Because I think there's something really important to say about the food, the actual micro and macronutrients. So, like you said, training has now shown us that protein is really important. And with that muscle growth, we want to have that higher input of protein. But and the research will show this. However, what is your personal experience with fats pre versus post workout? So, for instance, like I try not to have too much high fat before the run and then a higher fat content after the run. Um, Curious to know, like, if you've experienced like drastic changes incorporating that, or if you don't incorporate that, what your take is on it.
Totally. I do think there is a little bit of an individual preference when it comes to this. However, the research does show that men can respond better to having fat before running or before exercise than women. Um, and, you know, I do remember kind of like the bulletproof coffee trends where you would put butter in your coffee, and you would like have that before exercise, and it would like, was supposed to help like keep your energy up and blah, blah, blah. From what I've understood, that can be pretty detrimental to female hormone production. And so I personally tend to do much more carb focused before running. And then I have more of the fats and proteins following running. Um, I feel better that way. I also, I know that some people respond really well to nut butters, and that's like a standard, like, a bagel with peanut
Yeah.
butter and banana before you run. I've never responded well to nut butters before running. My stomach does not feel good off of that. So I've always, like, I have no allergy to them, but like today, I had a bagel with cream cheese before I ran. And then afterwards, I had um, rice cakes with almond butter and jelly.
Mm.
And that was like, that works totally fine for me. But I couldn't have switched it, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so I think there is an individual preference as well as there is, a physiological response.
Yeah. Interesting. I think it's just really important because um being athletes or being not even an athlete but somebody who is trying to fuel themselves properly for whatever sport or activity you're doing, I think we can often, if you don't have the education or the experience working with a dietitian or nutritionist, you don't really understand the power of fueling yourself properly, like how much that can affect your performance ability. And so talking about like the like youth and whether they're doing these like right after school, sports programs Monday to Friday, and then they compete on the weekend, like just knowing sort of the foundational level at least of what they should be fueling with, not crazy nitpicky but at least just the fundamentals will really really help them in the performance of it all, and then like you said, the recovery of it all as well. So thank you for like exploring that topic. I think it's really important, and of course as we advance as a society, we understand and we discover all of these, groundbreaking uncoveries with fueling bodies properly in the recovery process. Um, I would love to take it back to sort of your personal life and what you are exploring right now. So I know you mentioned you are almost a mother of three, on the way. Um, if you can kind of touch on how you balance your time between being a mom, the business of it all, being independent, and then also how the pregnancy is going round three, and if you can compare it, to the other ones. Yeah, I would love to just to figure that out a little bit more.
Cool, yeah. So I will start by saying that I feel very grateful that my husband has a normal job um, that provides the stability and health insurance and all of those things so that I can do what I do. I know that's not everyone's situation, but I've really enjoyed being a business owner and kind of pursuing these, uh, you know, pretty niche things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I'm passionate about. So, on the coaching side, so I went to college. I have a degree in communication and a minor in coaching. And so I knew that that was the direction I wanted to go. But I honestly kind of thought I would lean more towards like collegiate coaching.
Mm.
My dad, after he retired from being a professional athlete, became a collegiate coach. He's still a collegiate coach 26 years later. Um,
So
and
cool.
so, yeah, and it's actually kind of neat because my husband and I both ran for my dad in college. We met on the team. Um, so yeah, it's like kind of, a really cute story for us. It's kind of the foundation of where it all began for, him and I 16 years ago. Um, and anyways, so when I was a fresh pro.
Yeah.
I was about a year into training with the Hansons and running for Brooks.
Wow.
And I was based in Michigan and I got an injury. And I was so bored because I'm a professional athlete and I'm supposed to be training, and that's all I have going on
Right.
for me
Yeah.
every day. And I was like, what do I do with myself? Like, I can't do anything except like sit on a bike. And I was like, I got to do something. So I started an online coaching business.
Mm.
And I like reached out and just like kind of posted on Facebook, like, any of my friends want me to coach them? And I started with like a handful of Facebook friends. And it has since really grown from there. I now work with about 60 athletes,
Wow.
and I have three coaches that work with me, and they each have their own roster. So, on the whole, we have about 150 athletes.
Wow.
Um, in Get Running right now. And I would say over the years have really been, I think, I don't know, taken back or surprised by how much fun I have helping other people chase their goals. And, and it is so rewarding. So for me, while I started with this idea that I was going to go more of like a collegiate coaching direction, I now feel so grateful that I'm where I'm at and that, 23-year-old me had the idea to start
Yeah.
this little business, and now look where it is. Um, and so since having kids, it has been so helpful
Right.
to make my own schedule, work in my own time. Um, and yeah, it is. It can be really tough to balance at times. It can get kind of overwhelming. Um, and I hold myself to very high standards. So sometimes I get a little bit stressed because I feel like I'm not meeting expectations. For example, when I write out training plans, each training plan for each athlete is unique to them, specific to their goals,
Right.
their schedule, their lifestyle, what they have access to, their whether they can do hills, or if they live in Florida they can't do hills, but
Mm.
can they get on the track, or is there no track access? Do they have a treadmill or no? So, I kind of work with each person individually. And I write out 1 month of training at a time. And then, based off of how that training goes, I then write the next month of training because it's impossible to be like, okay, so this race in 6 months that you're going to do, we're going to write all this training and nothing's going to ever deviate.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
that's not real life. People are going to get sick. People are going to travel. They might have a little niggle that we have to
Yeah.
take a couple days off. And so, I'm always adapting and reworking training plans. But I let them see 2 weeks at a time. And I get really personally stressed when they can see that I haven't written
Right.
that, next day of training. Um, Even though they still might have 9 or 10 days of training in front of them. So, that's just an example of
Yeah.
like the, you know, how I hold myself, and
The
the little things
quality,
that
the
stress me
care.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like you said, you
Um,
personally invest in their training schedule, their ability to
yes.
go from point A to point B and seeing that progress. And I can so see how passionate you would become by seeing also the not only physical benefits of it, but the mental benefits of it as well. And I'm sure from your clients, you've heard great sort of stories about how you've been able to help them pull out of situations in their life where, maybe they were feeling like they were in a rut, but getting that chance to run and find a new sort of flow, a new hobby, if you will, or whatever it is, would be so fulfilling on your end. I could imagine.
It absolutely is. I always joke that like the training part's the easy part. It's the building their relationship, earning their trust, getting to know them and having them open up to things that are applicable to their training, but may not seem directly related, right? So it's like, someone's moving and they don't tell me, but then all of a sudden, like 4 days go by and they haven't run. And I'm like, hey, everything okay? And they're like, well, I thought I'd be able to run during the move, but it's gotten crazy. And I'm like, no, no, tell me these things. Like, I moved last year. I know how that works. Like, I will readjust your week. I will readjust your training. There is no expectation that you should run during your 4 days that you're moving across the country or whatever. Um, so I I end up talking a lot about, stress is stress. And like your body doesn't know if you did a 20-mile long run or if you were up all night because you have a teething baby or,
Mm.
like that your body is stressed regardless. And so we have to adapt and adjust to that. Um, and we can't just push through. So a lot of it is, yes, it's writing the training, but it's getting them to understand like when to do it and when not to, and what to tell me so that I can guide them most effectively.
Wow.
Um, so yeah, there's like lots of intricacies, and I think that's why I really like it because like no day is the same, right? Like there's always something different. And then working with three other coaches, we bounce a lot of ideas off of each other. So it's like, hey, has this ever happened to you or any of your athletes? Like, how did you manage this? Or, I have an athlete that's running the Boston Marathon and 6 days later running the Big Sur Marathon. Um, how do we, get them to recover most effectively in between those two races
Based
so
on
that they can
their
be
life, you know what I mean? Based on them specifically, uniquely. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So it's so helpful, to work with other like-minded coaches, as well as, have the ability to get to know the clients beyond just you're my athlete and this is your goal. And this is how fast you are and this is what you should do. It's so much more than that. But yeah, and then the other component that I hold myself to a high standard is that I have the communication degree, right? And communication is like my big thing. And so I get really stressed if like any emails are in my inbox for more than 24 hours. So I'm always responding. And so that's one of the pros and cons of having your own business, like, is you don't just log in at 9, log off at 5, and your day is over and you leave it. It's like, oh, it's 10 p.m. and I'm finishing up, responding to emails, and it's 6 a.m. and I just woke up and I have a couple minutes while I have my coffee before the kids wake up so that I can, get my day started. So yeah, it's just, I find that to be like something that's a little tricky, but also something I really value with, this whole career is, last summer I pulled my kids out of school and I pretended to be a stay-at-home mom. We had a ton of fun all day. And then once they went to bed, I would log in and I would work until I got what needed to be done. And I had so much fun with them. Um, and, they didn't know that I had, you know, 30 emails to attend to and, calls to make and different things. It was like, we got to spend a lot of quality time together, and that was really valuable to me, because my oldest was starting kindergarten and I like had this panic of like, oh my god, they grow so fast, like where did the time go? And then I was like, okay, now we have to have another baby because they're so big. So that was last summer's panic mode, but I was able to successfully have my business and also spend a lot of time with my kids, and that was really important to me. And then, yeah, with this pregnancy, I think that was the last part
Yeah.
of this question. Um, so I am 15 weeks now. I'm feeling much better than I did. Um, I feel like weeks 8 and 9, I was like really questioning my decisions surrounding a third. But I've come out on the other side. Um,
Yay.
and the boys are very excited to have another brother, and my oldest will be 7 at that point, and then my little one right now will be 4 at that point. So it's kind of been nice to like spread them out a little bit, because I feel like, when I had Athens, I had 3 years with him before Rome was born. And then when Rome was born, Athens started preschool, and I got some like special bonding time with Rome. And now it's like, okay, Rome's in preschool, I'll have this other one. So I feel like it's been really special because I do get to like have a lot of one-on-one time with each kid, as well as, you know, support and foster their growth.
Yeah.
So it's been really special. I feel like running looks has looked different for me with each kid. I'm running a little less than I did with my middle child, but significantly more than I did with the first one. So I'll take it. Um, I feel like with Rome, he was a COVID baby. So we just like weren't doing anything else. So it didn't matter if I was like tired because we didn't go anywhere. We were just at the house the rest of the day. And my run was like my one time I got to like leave the house and like do something, just me. So I feel like I did a lot more miles, but I feel like this time it's been like really nice to just kind of listen to my body. If I feel good, I run a little further, and if I feel eh, I cut it short and I walk home, and I've done both and it's fine. And we went on vacation to Phoenix last week for spring break, and I only ran once during the time we were there, and it was fine. But we spent like 8 hours in the pool every day, so
Yeah.
I
It's
was just busy
balance.
doing other things. Yeah,
I
so
think
it's been good.
that's so such an important lesson that I'm actually taking right now from your story is your ability to become like aware of the current situation, not what you assume it should look like or what you wish it looked like or anything like that, but your ability to just sort of morph and tweak and adapt to whatever the situation may be in your moment, in your, life at that stage. And I think that's really important. So for like listeners, just giving yourself that grace, and also understanding that you are not what you were or what your schedule looks like 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or even like 2 months ago. And so always, and that's always going to change. Every single chapter, phase, season in our life, we always have to sort of like realize what the environmental factors are, the internal factors are. How do we need to adapt and change our schedule and not get married to like these assumptions about ourselves and our abilities? Because I think that that can also play into why we start to feel so stressed, is because we think that we need to be performing here because we were performing there a month ago or whatever it is. So that's at least something that I've like been gathering, is like your great ability to adapt and adjust and be okay with that adapting. And then of course with that, you said it yourself, you set a personal record because you were able to like realize that maybe pulling the reins a little bit on the training and being a little bit more intuitive and conscientious of it all had allowed you to actually like perform one of your best runs that you'd ever done. So I think that's really, really important to note there. I would love to sort of wrap up on the last topic of what you think of when you project yourself into like the next 5 or 10 years. Do you see yourself building this company that you've for so long built when you were 23 all the way up till now? Do you think that you'll put your kids into running or into any sport that they feel like they might, find interest in? Yeah, just a little bit of what's to come for you.
I love that. I feel like talking about the future is always such a like, I don't know, building and like life-giving feeling. Because it's like, okay, these are like my little visions and my little goals. But then we always know that like things can change, and we'll adjust as we go. But as of right now, I would say, you know, one of the goals for Get Running Coaching is to bring on a, high performance coach and create a kind of more elite team with her. So each of us, kind of as coaches, have a different, um,
Focus or yeah,
focus. And it's been really nice because I feel like it makes our team so well rounded, that we can help people who are very new beginner runners, walk run,
right.
attempting a 5K type of people. I have worked with runners who are middle school aged all the
Mhm.
way to people in their 60s. I have coached people to the Olympic trials. I have coached people, walk run back from, postpartum, and rebuilding from there. We have tons of athletes who, their goal is to qualify for the Boston Marathon or to complete, all of the world majors. I have athletes who their goal is to run a race in every state. So lots of just really fun stuff. And each of our coaches kind of has a different strength that they bring to the table. Um, so that's kind of one of the goals, is to kind of have one of our coaches kind of take it to the next level with a high
Cool.
performance group. So these are the people that are knocking on the door of, you know, Olympic trials, of US championships, um, and that sort of thing, who, are maybe post collegiate and don't have a direction after college, and they're like, I have goals, like I want someone to support me and help me, but how do I do it on my own? So that's kind of one of the things that we're considering for the team. Um, personally, I'm actually going to reduce my roster a little over the next 6 months. With a baby coming, I want to make sure that I'm not overcommitted because quality is very important to me. So I want the athletes that I'm personally working with to experience the same level of support and quality. Um, so, my other three coaches will kind of help in that transition. Um, and then I would say, in terms of our family. Um, Goodness. So my oldest in the last like couple of months has become obsessed with sports, like all kinds of sports. And I want him to be able to like pursue some of these passions in like a very fun and age appropriate, non competitive way. Um, so I'm trying to navigate that at the moment. Um, we myself and another mom at the kindergarten are starting a run club for the kindergarten kids. So that's going to kick off in a couple weeks, where 2 days a week before school we'll meet to do some running laps for like 15 minutes. And I'm really excited about that. My husband and I coach the middle school track team, and so uh, Athens ends up coming to practice every day because I pick him up from school and then we go to track. Um, and there's been a couple times where like we've needed him to jump in because we're doing relays and we had an odd number of people, and he's had a lot of fun with it. So that's been really cool. But like, I don't want him racing and competing quite yet at this stage. Um, He's also really interested in trying flag football. Um, so he is going to try to do that starting next week. And it's just like 1 day a week. He's going to do that with a friend from school. So he seems really excited. We'll see how that goes. He's also done American Ninja Warrior stuff, which is really cool that there's like a training facility here. And
Wow.
it's like legit the people that like you see on the TV shows that are coaching the kids and stuff. So that's been really fun, but again, totally not competitive. And like the environment is really cool because it's all about like your personal growth and like
Right.
what you can achieve, and how you got better from the start to the end, and you built confidence and strength and speed and power. And um, so yeah, so we're kind of doing lots of different stuff with him. Our little one, we I'm forcing him to do swim lessons because that is the one thing that I feel is essential for kids. And so all of my kids at 3 start swim lessons, and I require them to become independent, safe
Swimmers.
swimmers for safety purposes. Again, totally not competitive. I'm not asking them to like, learn the butterfly. I want
Need
them
you to shave
to,
off 15 seconds.
yes. I want them to be able to be safe around water. So that's what we're focusing on with him at the moment. But yeah, so my take on sports is I want my kids to experience a lot of things and develop their passions on their own. And then as they get older and it's more developmentally appropriate, we will more zero in to pursue whatever those are.
Right. Right. Oh, amazing. I'm so grateful for you for sharing the full sort of circle of your personal life, but then also your professional business life as well. And then, of course, all the color in between. It is really motivational for me as a very, very early stage runner myself to hear that there is so many ways about going around running, and it can be really a lifestyle that you can adapt to. um if you have sort of any, I guess, resources or things that listeners can find you on, would it be the Instagram sort of handle and maybe a website, or how can people find out what you're doing and get a hold of the tools that you've produced?
Awesome. Yeah. So my book, Breakthrough Women's Running, is available on Amazon.
Okay.
So that's an easy place to buy it. I have a website. It's getrunningcoaching.com. So all of my coaching information is on there if you have any interest in learning about the business. We also will have a sale on coaching starting the middle of April through the end of the month. So if anyone's kind of been on the fence,
Mm.
that might be a good time to reach out. And then personally, I'm very responsive on Instagram. So you can follow me at Neely S. Gracey. And if there's any questions or thoughts or things you wanted to discuss in DMs, shoot me one. I'm happy to respond. Obviously, I'm very passionate about all the things that I do, and I love the ability to have that outreach that Instagram gives me. There's things I don't love about Instagram, but that is one that I really enjoy is that outreach and ability to connect with people in a broader circle.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to hear from people, and hopefully everyone enjoyed listening.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Leave Average for Joe. If you found inspiration in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, share the show with a friend, and keep the momentum going. I have been hosting this podcast now for nearly 1 year. May 1st will be the anniversary. It is actually quite insane to think about that because time has flown by, and as that time age old saying goes, time flies by when you're having fun. I've had a wicked first year with y'all, but I will say it has proven to be slightly challenging in terms of sustaining on your own without external support. So, regardless of the financial elements of it, if you can, take 2 seconds out of your day to share this show with a friend, share it on the socials, subscribe, leave a comment. You have no idea how far that goes because tiny, tiny little inches, centimeters of progress over time adds up. And that is the goal, is to just create this larger community, larger network so that these stories can be shared and provide more inspiration for more people. Before you go, I'm excited to announce the launch of our brand new website, briggsandco.ca. Soon, it'll be the home of a first of its kind career consulting service designed specifically for aspiring dance and entertainment professionals. Here's how it works. Just fill out the application form that will soon be available come May 1st. Let us know the areas you want to connect with an expert about, and we'll book you in for a personalized one-on-one call. Our mission is to give performers the tools, knowledge, and confidence they need to turn their training into an award-winning career. You can also sign up for my weekly newsletter at briggsandco.ca for exclusive insights, updates, and resources to help you keep leaving average behind. Stay connected with me on socials at Briggs_and_co_. Oh, if you're feeling old school, send a courier pigeon. Okay, just an email to admin@briggsandco.ca. Thanks again for listening. Keep pushing boundaries, keep breaking the molds, and as always, leave average for Joe, y'all. Take care.